Well, hello, everybody. You know, one of the things I am having to remind myself on a regular basis over these last few months is that God has not stopped working. He is not static. He is not on pause just because it feels like our lives have been on pause, or even if they've changed, they've not returned to as they once were or as we would want them to be. God is not finished with us. He is on the move. He is not static. And so the question that we need to ask ourselves is, God, what is it that you're doing that we are called to join in with? Today, I wanted to share a little bit about our vision as a church. And you know, our vision is still the same as it was before lockdown. Our vision is to be a community that is centred on the person of Jesus, transforming North London one life at a time. To be centred on Jesus, transforming North London one life at a time. The vision remains the same. And Jesus remains the same. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. But Jesus, what is it that you are doing? What is it that you're doing in our midst that you're calling us to join in with? As Jesus walked this earth, he said, I only do what I see my Father doing. So what is it that he is up to? A few months ago, we had one of our Holy Spirit hours on one of our Sunday evenings, a chance for us to hear from the Lord together, to worship together, online, of course. And this verse came up, and it's a familiar verse, but it really felt like it was for us. It's from the book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 7, verse 14. If my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land. The context for this passage, so often heard just taken as a single verse and not really known what else happens around it, is that the temple has been built in the heart of Jerusalem. Solomon, King David's son, has been the one to oversee the completion of the temple. And this bit of passage that we read comes at the end of a celebration, a dedication of this temple to God, that the heart of this city would be a place of worship. And the temple was, of course, the place of power and of encounter with God, the place of transformation, the place of good news that was, if you like, a beacon to the rest of the world. And Solomon called a celebration and dedication that lasted many days. And as the people are returning home after their celebration, these words are spoken to Solomon from God himself as a reminder that if we humble ourselves, seek his face, turn from our wicked ways, then he will heal our land, that he will transform us. So the temple was that place of transforming encounter. And those of us thousands of years later that consider ourselves followers of Jesus will of course know that actually the temple is no longer in Jerusalem. It is scattered across the world in the form of you and I. That the transforming presence of God is no longer confined to the bricks and mortar of a building in the Middle East, but is instead within each one of us. Each one of us, a temple of the transforming presence of God. The world needs right now the transforming presence of God. That's why that is part of our vision as a church, to see the transformation of the patch of God's kingdom that he has called us to, North London, to see the transformation of our city, one life at a time. And how does it happen? Well, God's reminder to us that if we want to see that transformation happen, if we want to be the presence of God to others, then it needs to start with us. That the transformation happens first with us. That we would humble ourselves. I don't know about you, but I really feel like as a world, as a nation, for me individually, we have been humbled over the last few months. Humbled by coming to the end of ourselves. To be humbled is to recognise that we're wrong in some way, or indeed to recognise that we have fallen short. We have been humbled. This has been a humbling season. I know that it has humbled me. I know that I have fallen short in my leadership of our church, in my role as a dad, as a husband. I know that I've fallen short as a follower of Jesus. I'm so aware of my limitations. I'm so aware of what I'm not able to do. I'm so aware of the things that are out of my control. But to be humbled is not a bad thing. Pete Hughes in our online service last week talked about the wilderness that Jesus went on, the retreat, as it were, that he went on before his ministry began. And the wilderness is a process of stripping back, and that's how this time of lockdown has felt for all of us. The stripping back of the things that we normally cling on to, our home comforts, our rhythms, our patterns. And yet again, as we begin a new term, those things have changed again. You see, to be humbled is to recognise that when we are stripped back in a time of quarantine, in a time of lockdown, that we recognise that we don't have all the answers. But to fall short is the human condition. To fall short is actually the reality that we are never meant to be enough in and of ourselves, and yet our world, our culture talks all the time, as Pete talked about last week, about self-sufficiency. Making sure that you can have it all together. And yet as we've been stripped back, we realise how little we have. I believe that God is calling us as a church to humble ourselves, to seek the face of God, to turn from our wicked ways, the ways that dishonour God, the ways that walk away and turn away from him. And in that process, I believe that we will be transformed. We will be healed from the inside out. And as a result, our world will be too. Church, I'm calling us to that place of humility so that we can see the transformation of ourselves and in turn our city. Many of us have been asking the question over the last few weeks and months, when are we returning back to the building, to St. Luke's itself? And I want to reassure you that that is something that we are mindful of and thinking through very seriously, bearing in mind the survey that we did just a few weeks ago. Mindful of all the restrictions and around singing and children's work and the amount of cleaning that would need to take place. But it is not something that we are ignoring. Instead, it is something that we are visiting as a leadership team almost on a weekly basis. But I wonder, in that desire to return to the building, whether in some ways, not always, because there's some good in that as well, but in some ways I wonder if it's the wrong question. Because we no longer are temple people in the sense of going to the place of encounter. Because the place of encounter is in us. The presence of God resides in us. And that is what I believe God has given us a vision for at St. Luke's. As a leadership team, as a church council, we've been meeting now on a monthly basis when before it was every 2 or 3 months. And we believe that God is leading us to this place where actually we can serve and love and be transforming agents in the world and neighborhoods that God has called us to. A couple of things that have been revealed, I believe, while we've been on lockdown. The first is, of course, that we've all been much more locally rooted than we ever have been before. We're more aware, aren't we, of our local businesses, and we shop there more than we have before. In our survey that we did, almost half of those who answered the survey said that they knew their neighbours better. When we were clapping for the NHS every Thursday evening, we were much more aware of those that came out of their front doors. And we gave them a nod and a smile, and maybe that would lead to a conversation. We are much more locally rooted, and as workplaces begin to get going again, it is for sure that our working rhythms and patterns and commutes have changed, certainly for the foreseeable, if not forever. And as a people, we are much more locally rooted as a result. The other thing that's emerged, I believe, amongst us, those of us who would consider ourselves followers of Jesus, is that we've become really aware of our vulnerabilities in faith. That we became very reliant on Sunday, if you like, for our slap-up meal of what it would take to sustain our faith, and Monday to Saturday was a little bit more piecemeal. But as, of course, we were no longer allowed to meet on a Sunday, it meant that became much more exposed. That there were fragilities and vulnerabilities around our walk with Jesus. I know certainly that I found that. And the other thing that emerged is that while online church has not been perfect for everybody, according to the latest statistics, at least a quarter of people in the UK at some point joined an online church community. A quarter, which the statistics are much fewer than that when we meet in person. So thinking through what the next step might be for us as a church, and with that sense of wanting to be people who humble themselves and seek the face of Jesus. We believe God has given us a sense of where he might be leading us in this next season. We're going to continue exploring what it might look like for us to meet in the building. But until then, we're going to plan around and launch Sunday cells. Sunday cells are not to do with prison, but instead are more to do with biology. The cells that grow and then divide once they reach a certain size. That on a Sunday, that you will have the opportunity to gather. At the moment it will be on Zoom, but with a smaller group of people to engage with church online, and then have an opportunity led to pray for one another and to start to begin to explore, to serve our neighbours and love our neighbours. Each of those groups will be based around geography. So if you live in Tufnell Park, there'll be a group near you, or Turnpike Lane, there'll be a group hopefully near you, so that you get a sense of being locally connected to one another and get a sense of a heart for praying for and loving your neighbours. Those groups, hopefully, when the restrictions start to be liberated a little, will then begin to meet in person. We're really excited, not least for that moment of connection on a Sunday, but also for the opportunity there is for us to really serve and love our neighbours. So Sunday cells will be getting going in a couple of weeks' time. And if you're interested in joining one of those, then Lizzie has more information for you today. The second thing to say is that in response to us taking ownership of our own walk with Jesus, over the course of a normal week at St. Luke's, there'll be various opportunities for you to join in with different things that will sustain, encourage and challenge your faith. There'll be a weekly rhythm that you can participate in, as much or as little as you would like. so that you feel like you are growing in your faith. But we're placing the ball in your court. On a Monday, well, we're going to set aside Mondays for training of all kinds, whether that's for parents or for in marriages or for young people, whatever that might be. On Tuesdays, we're going to dedicate Tuesday to prayer and to fasting. We want to be people of prayer, not just something that fills the diary, but not just tokenistic, but people that seek after the face of God. We're going to meet in the morning on a Tuesday, beginning this week, and in the evening on a Tuesday, for those for whom mornings are hard and for those of us with young children. Those times will be available on the website and on the WhatsApp communication that we send out. We would love for you to join us and dedicate Tuesday to praying for our church, for our community, and for our world. Wednesday, we're going to have Alpha. Alpha is an opportunity for anybody to explore faith. And there may be friends of yours that you would love to invite on Alpha. Join us on Wednesday evenings as we begin Alpha from next week. And next Sunday is going to be our Alpha Sunday, an opportunity for us to hear more about that. But for you as well to think about, is there any friends that you could invite to join Sunday online here at St. Luke's to hear people talk about Jesus, and have your friends join in with that as well. And then on Thursday, we're going to go deeper in our faith and in our relationship with Jesus, in digging deeper into the passage that we will have looked at on a Sunday. And we're going to have joining us every week on a Thursday a friend of mine who's a theologian who called Dr. Stephen Backhouse. And I would love for you to join us, and that will also be hosted online. So all the way through the week, pretty much, there is something going on for you to join in with, to think about how you can seek after the face of God with this beginning posture of being humbled, We are really excited for where God might be joining us. Sundays are going to look a bit different, and we would encourage you as a first port of call to join in with a Sunday cell group. And all the information will be online. But the other thing about Sundays is that we're going to be more aware of those of us who would not consider ourselves followers of Jesus. The 25% that might join who we don't know where they're at in their walk. And we're going to be more aware of that so that you feel confident enough to invite them, your friends from work, your friends from college, whatever it might be, to join in online on a Sunday and say, this is my church that I'm part of. We believe and we're really excited about where God is leading us. But may we humble ourselves. If we haven't been doing so already, seek after the face of God. Turn away from the things that take us away from him and turn towards him. In this season that will stretch us and challenge us, but reminds us that God is faithful and that he has not stopped working. Amen.